You are listening to Peak One Sports.
Saturday, and welcome to the Leadoff on the Peak One Sports Network. I'm Ashton with Tony and Landen, here to get you ready for your sports weekend. What's going on, boys?
Man, it's my wife's birthday weekend, and I completely forgot.
Uh-oh.
And I scheduled
Don't
a job.
say that on here. This is recording.
I scheduled a project to be done on Sunday, and that's the day of her birthday.
Well,
and I can't get out of it.
Yeah, that's I'm not experienced enough where I can take that over just yet. Man, you should have jumped on here and be like, she doesn't know, she thinks I forgot, but I have this huge thing scheduled for Monday.
Well, I don't think she watches the show anyway, so.
Oh. This is going to be the one time she watched, right?
This is a safe space for me.
So this is what you do. You plan something crazy for Monday. And then
like today, later today, is like go all out and give her like a yes day. Whatever she wants to do, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah,
no questions asked.
But if you plan something, you can always say that I tried planning it for your birthday, but it was booked or whatever. So that's why I'm doing my project Sunday, because I'm doing this today or Monday. But no, yes days definitely work. It's definitely underrated. Just go to your wife and be like, whatever you want.
Yeah.
That. Landen, for some relationship advice. Not just saying yes. You have to be excited about what they want, because they'll tell you what you want, what they want. Like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. They want you to care. They usually it's probably a bad idea, like spend a ton of money at Target, eat something unhealthy. They want you to get excited, like, yeah, it's okay, we can do that. Just a nod of advice. But yeah, Landen, Tony, I'm Ashton. We are, like I said, going to get you ready for your sports weekend. Thank you for tuning in. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the like button, however else you're watching. If you don't like us, hit it twice. Share us with your enemies. A couple of sponsor reads real quick. Say goodbye to unruly behavior and hello to a well-mannered pup. The Dapper Dog Academy stands out as a top-notch canine training institute located in Cleburne and serving the DFW Metroplex. Contact Korri and the Dapper Dog Academy on Facebook or call and schedule a consultation today. All that info is in the description box below. Also, go ahead.
You aren't you using Korri for your dog, or you are going to?
We are going to get to that. Yeah, right now there's a lot of projects going on, but we are going to start using her. She's going to start giving us some private consultations to check out our dog and see what works best. We have a 1-year-old golden retriever who looks basically full grown. It's our first golden retriever. So not only is he large, not only is he crazy, but he's large. So it kind of multiplies the impact.
You have an unruly pup.
If you want to call him a pup, he doesn't look like a pup. I imagine this is the same he's going to look like when he's 6 years old. But yeah, for sure. He
doesn't know he's that big.
No, of course not. He tries to play with our cats. We have another smaller dog who's about 8, grumpy and old, and he tries to fight back. They all try to fight him, and he's fine. He just sits there and takes it, but he's just trying to play. Let's see here. We've been saying it forever. Don't bet with your gut. Use Betalytics and use their AI algorithms and picks to make your sports gambling picks. Sign up today using promo code PEAK1. You get 25% off. Again, thank you for tuning in, however you're listening right now. So big weekend so far. NFL draft started Thursday, first round. What was it? Rounds 2 and 3 yesterday. And now day 3, we have 4, 5, 6, and 7. Gets kicked off at 12 Eastern, whatever the next round is. Any specific things that stand out to y'all on the draft so far? I know we're going to talk some of the Cowboys, and y'all know a couple of teams that I don't think are doing a very good job right now.
I think one of the from the first round, you look at the top 10, one of the more confusing picks to me, with as many quarterbacks were in this draft, is the Falcons.
Yeah, we'll start
signing
there.
Kirk Cousins to a huge contract, and then you bring in Michael Penix Jr. If unless the thought is he's the predecessor to,
Yeah.
like I don't know. That was a weird one.
It came out of nowhere with Adam Schefter saying that the Falcons were looking at this as the Falcons were on the clock. I think maybe they didn't expect a quarterback, like unless they just like really like Michael Penix. If they didn't expect him to drop that low, which I don't think it was necessarily surprising he dropped that low. I know we knew Marvin Harrison Jr. would probably go number 4, and then there just weren't really many quarterbacks in that. The Giants went receiver, and you thought they could go quarterback.
Are you surprised with the Patriots taking Drake May?
No, I think that's looking at mock drafts. That's what I kind of figured. I thought Drake May could kind of be the CJ Stroud to last year's draft. Like, I think Caleb Williams is overhyped. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a bust, but I like Drake May to probably what we see now to have a better career.
The betting line on if you put down $20,000 on Caleb Williams being drafted number 1 overall to the Bears, you would win $100.
See, I wanted to see the betting line on Caitlin Clark going number 1 overall. That's what I was thinking leading up to the WNBA draft. Like, she has to go. Like, what if I just took a mortgage out of my house? Like, I didn't even know if there was a betting line on that. Probably something similar. Yeah, $20,000 just to win 100 at that point. It's not even worth it. To the off chance that Caleb Williams doesn't go number 1.
The one move I did like, Jaden Daniels to the Commanders, I think that's a good pick for them.
Yeah.
I think he's a good fit there. I think he's a very good quarterback. He obviously in this draft class gets overshadowed by some other names. Very good quarterback.
Well, I know Daniel Jones and that deal, the contract, the Giants can, for the most part, get out of it after this season if they need to without taking a huge hit. So I think it's in their best interest to give him some weapons and really see if Daniel Jones could be the guy or not. And then if you're not, you have a good receiver. Hopefully he's not a bust, and then you can get your quarterback next year. But jumping back to the Atlanta Falcons, obviously they picked Michael Penix Jr. with the 8 overall pick after signing Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal in the offseason. But I have read on a couple of different articles, and this fact comes from overthecap.com, that the way the Falcons have structured this contract, it gives them an out in 2026 with very little dead cap. They can cut the quarterback before June 1st, 2026 and save $32.5 million against the cap. Now, obviously, next year they can't do anything. I think it's a $40 million, maybe $30 million. But it's a big dead cap hit if they cut him next season. And obviously he has a no trade clause also, but so you can make the argument that Penix can sit for the first year, compete for the starting role in year 2, and then Atlanta can make a decision then. But my deal is, like, how does Kirk Cousins feel about all this? Like, he's said all the stuff he's supposed to say, can't wait to work with him, blah, blah, blah. But according to USA Today, Kirk Cousins was stunned by the pick. So it's not necessarily the pick itself, but it's that the Falcons didn't even – that had to be on their mind. They're not just going to go, oh, Penix dropped and make a decision in the moment.
Yeah.
They have to have that as a backup plan if that's indeed what happened.
How do you not tell
him like that?
You sign a big contract like that, you're looking at yourself as the guy for several years.
Yeah.
You want them to go draft, especially when you have a pick this high, you want them to go draft weapons for you.
Yeah.
And, quite honestly, there were some weapons available. You had, I don't even know now, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks in the top 10 went.
6 in the top 12, a record.
And 14 offensive players. You didn't have, I think, a defensive player till pick 15. Is that right? Yeah. The edge rusher, I don't even know how to say it. Latu from UCLA, the Indianapolis pick was the first defensive player picked.
There were definitely a lot of weapons they could go after. And even if, I'm never a proponent of just take somebody you're not comfortable with taking at that point, just because that's who is available. You can always trade back if you need to. I know it doesn't always pan out to get a deal done, but you know, trade back a couple of picks and get, if you don't want to pick somebody that high that's on your board. But I mean, I guess they were really excited about Penix. I mean, I think injury history, I know he's been relatively healthy the last couple of years, but you could see in the game against Texas in the national championship that he was just against Michigan, that he was just getting beat up. So we'll see. It's kind of shocking that they just kind of kept Kirk Cousins in the dark on this.
Yeah.
I mean, that deal was signed 6 weeks ago. It's a big. I mean, not that getting a backup quarterback and letting him sit's not a big deal, but that's a really high pick to do that with.
Yeah.
Another
team when we're talking about quarterbacks, the Denver Broncos.
They
take Bo Nix. They trade for
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. They have Ben DiNucci. Who's the other? They have one more. I mean, they have 4 quarterbacks essentially competing for their starting job there. It's kind of an odd scenario in the NFL. Is you usually have guys that are front runners, and maybe Bo Nix is the front runner in this.
I mean, I can't imagine him not getting the job unless he's just. I mean, I know the Broncos are in a different situation. They're definitely not a win now. I don't know that Sean Payton's not thinking they're win now. But unless Bo Nix just comes in, he's just not ready. He's completely incapable of taking over. I mean, I don't imagine you saying Zach.
He's like a 32-year-old first round draft pick.
Seriously, yeah.
This guy's been around forever.
Yeah, you would think if he's, he should know what's going on at this point. But if Zach Wilson's your other, I get it. If
how do you project it, Landen? How do you project Bo Nix in the NFL? I mean,
I didn't like him in college. I didn't think that he was amazing.
I thought it was a little overrated.
Yeah. Because even when you look back at when he was at Auburn, he wasn't very good. When he moved to Oregon, he was okay, but I think that people kind of put him on a pedestal when he really shouldn't have been. If you think about guys his age are performing in the NFL, and he's struggling to perform in college at sometimes.
Yeah, and Oregon's kind of is a weird situation for quarterbacks where they can kind of get thrusted on that pedestal. I mean,
like a Marcus Mariota.
I mean, Herbert wasn't a bust, but you see, he's just not panning out to what we've been thinking he's going to pan out for a few years. We're like, oh yeah, he's going to be the next guy, and it's just not like that. He hadn't been bad like Mariota was.
The Oregon quarterbacks kind of remind me of Duke players over the history. Duke players coming into the NBA just really don't pan out to be these huge stars that they are for the most part in college.
Kyrie Irving, Grant Hill, but you
got a few, but overall, you see these guys.
Grayson,
I mean, I remember
Allen, Christian,
one that I followed back in the 2000s, Trajan Langdon. He just lit up college basketball, and then he goes to the NBA, and he essentially did nothing. These Oregon quarterbacks come out, they're Heisman Trophy candidates, Heisman Trophy winners. They put up the stats, they win games, and they go to the NFL and just never transition out of that program.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to blame the conference because especially the Pac-12 was a really good conference last year. 2 really good games against Washington that Oregon lost. USC really wasn't as good as we thought they were last year. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have the same issue sort of with Alabama quarterbacks where, I mean, they're playing top-notch talent. They're playing great defenses in the SEC, but their issue is more you have so much talent around you that it kind of thrusts you up. I don't know that that's usually necessarily the issue in Oregon, maybe with Mariota, because Oregon's not really the powerhouse they were about 10 years ago. I know they were just close to being in the college football playoff, but there for 4 or 5 years, it was like they were one of the top 5 teams. I'm not sure what it is, but it seems like there's going to be a pattern. And we'll see. Like, I think there's an issue if Bo Nix isn't starting outside of like, hey, our organization is, I want to say tanking, but we're not there yet, which I don't know why you wouldn't just put your starting quarterback in unless you were
Yeah.
tanking or something. But
Yeah, I
I
can't
mean,
imagine Zach Wilson is going to win this job.
yeah. And even if you say, hey, there's something for sitting down and being a backup, I mean, yeah, if you have a veteran quarterback ahead of you, like you're talking about Mahomes in this situation, Alex Smith, great veteran quarterback. I mean, is there any benefit to backing up Zach Wilson and learning? Not that Zach Wilson did anything. I mean, he just, spent a year with Aaron Rodgers, so I'm sure he's picked up something.
Honestly, I think, Ben DiNucci might have a better shot over Zach Wilson.
That, I mean, yeah, once you start, like sometimes players just need a different environment, a change of pace.
Yeah.
But now this is, I don't think this is. Zach Wilson just seems good because he was the backup, and you're like, okay, he's thrust back into the starting role after Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. He seems like he's like, okay, he's got something going, and then he just can't. He's just not performing. And it's one thing if you're just turning the ball over, doing something like it's not necessarily something you can look at and you're like, okay, I can fix that. It's just not working. And I don't know, maybe Sean Payton, the quarterback whisperer, can help him out. Who knows? But I mean, you had Aaron Rodgers, who I thought, is a very interesting guy in much aspects of life, but I think his expertise, the wisdom he can give on playing football should help you a lot. And I thought it was for a little while, but then you just kind of look, it's like Zach Wilson just isn't able to play.
What do you guys think about the Cowboys' moves in this draft?
I mean, taking an offensive lineman mid-20s, well, I guess it was 29th. They traded back 5 spots to take Tyler Guyton. Oklahoma lineman, likely going to be left tackle, assuming he's ready to go. I guess you still have Tyler Smith that could be left tackle if he's not ready, but he's going to be your left tackle of the future. Similar reactions as other drafts, where at this point, if the Cowboys are picking an offensive lineman late in the first round, and I don't agree with it, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. A defensive lineman or a defensive tackle, I don't. Like, you had Taco Charlton, Mozzie Smith, those are busts, but their offensive linemen have all been hits. I mean, look at reactions to drafting Travis Frederick. Everybody hated that pick. It worked out. I mean, I know he had to retire early, but he was a great player. Even Tyler Smith, there were people, I think they're being obnoxious and posting on social media like, Tyler Smith, who's that? Like, if you follow football, you should know who Tyler Smith was at the time. And there was an opportunity for him to go to the Cowboys, but it's been 2 years, but that's panning out. I think, they traded back, they picked up a 3rd round pick, and Tyler Guyton is the same level as other offensive linemen that the Cowboys were mock drafted to pick up. So really, you pick up the same caliber player and pick up a 3rd round pick. You fill a need, which I thought offensive line, unless you just didn't like where you were sitting, if some guys came off sooner than you thought, I thought offensive line is what you needed to take in the first round. I'd like the pick. I know it's not a sexy pick. Jerry Jones called it a sexy pick, but it's one of those boring picks. But I think it was a really good pick, honestly, and I think it's going to be one we look back on. I don't know if Guyton's going to be a Hall of Famer or anything, but I think he's going to be a very solid offensive lineman, hopefully for the next decade. And we're going to look back like, say, Cowboys are really good at drafting offensive linemen in the first round.
Yeah, it was a boring pick. It was not your typical first round pick by a team, at least for their first pick if they had multiple.
Yeah.
It fills a need for sure. I think it's the frustration for the Cowboys fans, though, that you never really go out and get that sexy pick. They don't really go out, and get that guy very often. They're not always down in the top 10 where you can go and get those picks year after year after year.
Well, if you compare to what
Probably
they
more like
have
a
been
second
have
round,
been doing,
more like a second round pick than a first
yeah,
round pick. It obviously isn't something for the fans to get excited about, but it does fill a need on essentially a very talented team.
yeah, and the thought about saying, "Oh, they're a second round grade," there's not every season. I know it's kind of weird to think about. Every draft, there's not necessarily 32 first round grades. That's not how they're graded. So sometimes there's a lot less, so you're going to get a second round grade. But when you're talking about the times they have gone out and done great, exciting things in the draft, they traded up and got Mo Claiborne. Didn't work out. It was a very exciting time. When the Zach Martin draft, when Johnny Manziel was dropped, like I didn't think I wanted Johnny Manziel, but I kind of wanted it to happen just because it was going to be the exciting pick. They draft Zach Martin. I don't think people hated that. It was just, oh crap, you think Jerry's going to take Johnny Manziel, and then you're like, oh, Zach Martin, and that turned out to be, a great pick.
Yeah.
They just didn't have a lot. I mean, they were already lacking in draft. They just got rid of their 4th round pick to get Trey Lance. So it was a need to trade back. You got a 3rd round pick. So you had, 3 picks in the top 100. Is that what it was? Or 4 picks? 4 picks in the top 100. So it helped you with your depth. I just don't think the Cowboys were in a position to really go after that, because they have so many needs. Realistically, who would you have gone after as a sexy pick? Because you could have traded up a couple of spots, but without giving up like next year's first. I mean, you weren't getting into the top 10 or even really the top 15. I know people are more frustrated with the Cowboys than the last few years, if that's believable, because how they just got rocked again in the playoffs against Green Bay. And then Jerry Jones saying the next day or the night of, we're going all in, and then black. I mean, Jerry Jones obviously shouldn't have said that because they can't really do much because of their caps. I'm not defending the Cowboys. I'm saying they're just in a bad position. They can't do a lot. What they have, I thought this was a good draft so far.
With those types of comments, though, you say all in, and then you're just going and getting a guy you would have gotten if you said, hey, we're not all in, we're building a team. Yeah. We're just filling spaces. We're filling roster spots. That's essentially what this pick was to me. What this said to me was, we're just filling a roster need. Not we're going all in. We're trying to get the best of the best. Like, which is why they traded down. They weren't the guy they wanted. They knew they could get him at whatever they went 30.
Yeah. Now, there were a couple of offensive linemen that I thought just take them at 24. Looking back after I've slept on it and Tyler Guyton's right up there with most of these. I mean, he's not a chump. I mean, you took Tyler Smith out of Tulsa. That was my concern. Like, he's a Tulsa. Like, I know it transitions, but you obviously know there's a bigger risk there picking out of one of the smaller schools who don't necessarily play. But Tyler Guyton's great offensive lineman out of Oklahoma, playing really good. I mean, I know Big 12 defenses aren't all that great, but playing NFL caliber college players most of his career. So like, I think he's going to be a really good player. Very low risk for this to be a bust. Now, I see what you're saying. You're like, yeah, he's probably going to be a pretty good player. Like, if he's a Hall of Fame player, we look back and like, hey, this was a great pick, like Tyron Smith or something like that. But having a solid offensive lineman isn't necessarily what is definitely not what all in looks like.
Yeah.
If you're going from that standpoint, what have the Cowboys done this offseason? What's all in? What are we doing to win a Super Bowl next year? This may not. This definitely not. Win now. Like, he could be the day one starter at left tackle and do a really good job. But
Cowboys drafting reminds me of the guy in your fantasy football league that's never played before and just goes and just randomly picks guys and takes kickers in the 3rd round. And Jerry Jones reminds me of that guy in your fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. Where they're, they pick it because they think they're supposed to. Yeah. They don't really know. Like, I don't necessarily give Cowboys credit for Micah Parsons. I mean, they did draft him, but they did not. obviously you don't really know what they're going to pan out, but they did not draft Micah to be an edge guy. That was an option, I guess, but he didn't play much edge at all at Penn State. He was going to be a linebacker, and then I guess through training camp they thought so. So you're like, oh yeah,
you're Dan Quinn, right? I mean, Dan Quinn may be the genius behind that realized what he had.
Yeah, no joke. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, if you look at the whole situation of the Cowboys, where they were at, it's like good pick. I mean, it was a good pick from where they were at.
It was a safe pick.
It was a very great term, very safe pick. More likely than not, you have a solid left tackle for whether it's Dak Prescott or whoever your next quarterback's going to be next season, the season after next. Great foundation for this offensive line. I know we've seen I'll say the importance of a good offensive line, because even when Tony Romo without the offensive line hasn't done much different. I mean, I guess they have, made the playoffs 3 straight years and went 12-5 the last 3 years, but I mean, not much different than when Tony Romo was just getting hurt all the time. But I mean, you have to start replacing these guys, and I think if Tyler Guyton can come in and start day one to be your left tackle and be okay with Tyler Smith, with Zach Martin, Terrence Steele another year off of his ACL tear, and then I'd like the Cowboys to get a center, but I don't know if you're going to get a center that's starting this season, 4th round or later. And they need another running back too. But overall, Marshawn Keelan, edge rusher, Western Michigan at 56. Cooper, is that Beebe or Bebe?
Beebe,
is that how you pronounce it? Guard out of Kansas State. More depth, I guess, more than anything. Replacement for Zach Martin in a few years, I guess. I don't know his flexibility if he could play center or tackle. And then they got a linebacker out of Notre Dame. So, I mean, filling needs, but
yeah,
I think a center and a running back are important now. Like, you have Zeke more than likely coming back. I don't know. Third down back, I think, more than anything. But again, I don't know, Cooper Beebe, if he has the flexibility to even play center or anything. Not educated on that.
What do we think about, lastly, and before we move on to something else here, what do we think about having a McCaffrey in the division now? The Commanders, the number 100 pick yesterday, last pick, select Luke McCaffrey, brother to Christian McCaffrey, receiver out of Rice. Do we think he can pan out and be anything near what Christian is?
I mean, he's not necessarily projected to. I know, like, all the Watt brothers and what are the defensive brothers? The Chargers in San Francisco. Totally blanking on that. Bosa's, like, they were kind of projected to be that. I know they were better than really what you thought they were going to be. And, back to the watch, J.J. Watt might be the worst of the 3. And he was fantastic. Like, they're not saying he's going to be anything like McCaffrey, but then McCaffrey you didn't really see coming to that extent.
I don't think to the superstar he is, especially as a running back. You didn't realize he was so multifunctional in the offense. Luke is more of a traditional wide receiver with a more traditional wide receiver build. I think 194 pounds or something.
I mean, it's the same thing when you look at the Commanders getting Jaden Daniels. Like, that's obviously concerning as a Cowboys fan, but give it a couple of years, because I don't think the Commanders roster is something you even need to worry about yet. They're obviously doing more than the Cowboys are doing, but I don't know that Jaden Daniels is that guy to really affect that roster that well just yet.
Yeah.
But we all know what the Cowboys are like with rookie quarterbacks.
We're 100 picks in the draft. They'll pick up round 4 today.
Noon Eastern.
So I don't expect there's a whole, at this point in the draft, it's more filling places. There's no, knowing that you're going to realize is a diamond in the rough just yet, maybe for a couple years.
I'm going to be
This is the point in the
obnoxious
draft
here.
that these are very important picks.
Yeah.
That could pan out to be something.
I'm going to be obnoxious here because this is what people always say. Tom Brady was drafted day 3. Dak Prescott was drafted day 3. Brock Purdy was the last pick of the draft. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, chances are you're if you can get a starting role out of one of these guys or just get these guys to complete their rookie contract, I think these are good picks. Lastly, before we move on from the draft, another interesting move. I'm not sure the Bills expected it to go down this way, just kind of got away from them. The Buffalo Bills trade back twice in the first round, ultimately making their first pick in the second round at number 33, taking Keon Coleman, receiver out of Florida State. Not necessarily a bad situation if you just kind of look at it as a whole, but then when you look at the first pick they traded with the Chiefs, who went and got Xavier Worthy. Now, I don't know what I didn't find what picks they got out of moving back a few. I don't think they got anything really exceptional from the Chiefs. But now that Diggs has left and you're obviously receiver needy, would it not have been better for the Bills to just take Xavier Worthy instead of Keon Coleman? I think he's a better player. And you trade with the Chiefs, who you've been competing against the last 4, so however many years in the AFC to try to make it to a Super Bowl. I think it takes a little sting away from the pick or from the situation. I guess Keon Coleman's a good receiver, but man, you had Xavier Worthy and you let him go to the Chiefs. Any thoughts on that? Like, I thought that was kind of maybe a bonehead move to trade. Like, I would never, I don't know that I would never, but I would be very wary of trading even draft picks in division or against rival. I know they're not in the same division, but against rivals that you're competing against.
Just to trade back and take a same position as that draft slot was, but lesser.
Lesser.
Yeah.
As
value.
of now, like who knows? Who knows? We might be looking back and they drafted, they dodged something, not drafting Xavier Worthy. If that's who they were going to draft, I
think if I'm the Bills, I stick right there in that slot and I take Xavier Worthy. I have no reason not to.
Yeah, now maybe Keon Coleman's a Hall of Fame receiver and Xavier Worthy's a bust or whatever, and it's like, hey, look, they got Hall of Famer, they got some draft capital, and
yeah, and that's a great pick for the Chiefs. That's a great slot for them as a need, but I think also a big pick for them too. A sexy pick.
Yeah, giving Mahomes a little more. I mean, because that's where you're at now with Mahomes and big contracts with Kelsey, that you're relying a lot on the draft to keep their dynasty going.
Mm-hmm.
And you expect, I mean, even if Xavier Worthy's not a great player, you expect him to be very flashy for Patrick Mahomes. Also, Buffalo got Utah safety Cole Bishop at pick 60. All right. Let's move in where we're at. Okay, good timing. Move into the NBA playoffs. Talk more specifically the Mavericks as the unofficial channel of the Dallas Mavericks, or just DFW Sports in general. I did say unofficial, don't worry. Luka scores 22 in a near triple-double in the 101-90 victory in Game 3 on Friday to give the Mavs a 2-1 lead in the series. What sticks out to me so far in the series, at least games 2 and 3, is the Mavs are actually playing defense, which has been a knock on them for the last few years. As much crap as we've given Jason Kidd for his questionable coaching decisions, he's done a really phenomenal job these last couple of games in his defensive game plan and getting these Mavericks players to really play good defense. Luka has stood out. I think it was game 2 that there was a stat that Kawhi, Harden, and Paul George did not score a single point when Luka was guarding them. Now, I didn't see how often Luka was guarding them, but you would think that's, one of the, like, if you guard him for a substantial amount of time, that's a great stat. And something you don't necessarily see from Luka. You just kind of assume he's going to make up for his poor defensive play.
Yeah.
But the last 2 games he's played pretty good defense. Nothing nothing Hall of Fame defensive level play, but really good in what the Mavericks need right now.
Yeah.
Derek Lively, who scored 13 points, did say after the game, quote, I think we all see that when we're on the defensive side, there's a different look in everybody's eyes. And it's like being aggressive and being the aggressor, even when they have the ball. So you can, give a nod. That's a little testament to Jason Kidd on the mindset
Yeah,
these guys
exactly.
have. I mean,
Yeah,
look,
the Mavericks should definitely heat up here. They've been a solid team all through the season. They could heat up here. I mean, I could see them, really pushing themselves possibly all the way to the Western Conference Finals.
they have a good raw. I mean, obviously you have Luka and Kyrie, who, I mean, it's worked since Kyrie's come here. Attitude wise, he's done all the right things. I know last year there was some, I mean, they played well together, but there was some like, hey, somebody take over. They were both like, hey, it's your team. And there's still a little bit of that, but I think they've done a good job of filling their roles and knowing what they're supposed to do. The knock on the Mavericks since 2011 has been role players. They really haven't had anybody good. And the guys that they have had that would be good role players, they've really overpaid. That now you're getting, like we said, Derek Lively. You have a lot of other good players, role players that are starting to step up. And this roster looks good where they went on a run. I know they lost the last couple of games because they just sat everybody because they pretty much had their spot locked in. They just rested a bunch of guys, but the run they've been on the last couple of months, it's at least definitely the last month of the season. They look like, I mean, you've seen worse looking teams make a run to the finals.
Yeah.
Now I thought this was a good matchup with the Clippers. I think they get out of this series. What do they have? OKC next, OKC or New Orleans, whoever comes out. I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute. And then obviously, I think the whole West runs through Denver at some point.
Yeah, which Denver will be the tough team to beat in there. They're up 3-0 on the Lakers, which is not surprising for the talent that Denver team is. And this is 2 years in a row. That's just a stout team.
Yeah, for sure. And what do we look at? I know the Mavericks were just in the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. And in that season, I think as soon as they beat Utah, especially with Luka being hurt the first couple of games, that we were like, okay, they're playing with house money. They've, even if they don't move past Phoenix, I think they've done enough to make it a successful season. Kind of reset, missed the playoffs last year. What's kind of their ceiling here? I mean, well, obviously, I think they could make it a run to the finals, depending on what could happen with Denver. But at this point, like before the playoffs, what was your thinking of a successful Mavericks season, not disappointing? And now that they're up 2-1, has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, with the talent, we knew they were going to be a talented team coming into this year. Having a full season with Kyrie and, a few of the other moves they made. I mean, I think at least getting through this first round, I think at that point, it's not a bust. It's not a disappointment. I don't see them making it past Denver.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone beating Denver in this Western Conference. I think they're going to find themselves representing the West again in the finals. They're too talented of a team, and they've been a talented team for a while. They've been playing together well. I don't see anyone being able to knock off the Nuggets this year.
Yeah, I think it's Nuggets Celtics in the finals. Myself, it kind of. I mean, obviously, last year when they missed the playoffs, standards and expectations got reset. Going into this year, I'm like, they need to make the playoffs. They need to get back in the playoffs, for sure. Lively was a lot better than you thought he was going to be. You got a lot of good players. I mean, you have when Dwight Powell's your starting center, you can only go so far. It doesn't matter. Luka can't carry you so far.
Yeah.
When Dwight Powell's your center in this era of basketball, you need, especially in the playoffs. obviously going into this series, I thought the Mavs should win. They should be favored. I know they're the 5th seed. They did have home court advantage, but I thought they should. I'd be relatively disappointed if they didn't win, depending on how the series went. If it goes game 7, something like that, that's not necessarily disappointment. I think at this point, if you don't beat the Clippers, it's a disappointment because you played 2 really good games. You've taken over the series. I thought that Lakers rosters, they do have really good players, but those are kind of the 3 superstars that I don't say known for choking. Kawhi has won a couple of championships, but that has been more or less the toxic of the superstars in this league. I know Chris Paul's up there. Kevin Durant to some extent might be up there. Kyrie Irving was, but I think these 3 I never thought, Harden, Kawhi, and Paul George were going to be a good fit. On paper, it looks good, but I never thought they were going to be a good fit. So you should take care of these guys. I think you match up well against Oklahoma City if that's indeed who they play. Very young team. Young teams don't tend to have much success in the playoffs. It's usually the nod goes to the veterans.
Yeah.
So depending on what that second round looks like if you go games 6 or 7 games, I'm not necessarily disappointed, but at this point, what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking the next round is going to be Oklahoma. I think it's a huge disappointment now at this point, being up 2-1 if you give up the series to the Clippers. Expectations have moved. I think you should go to the Western Conference Finals and at least compete. Just don't get blown out.
Yeah.
Maybe take it to 6 games, and I think, it's all exciting. I mean, looking
that's
forward
a
to
plus
next
season
year.
if that happens.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, if you go 7 games of the Clippers, overall, if you take a step back, it's still a good season. If you go Oklahoma City and don't get swept, I think it's still a good season. This is just a different team than past seasons. Obviously, you have Luka and Kyrie, who you kind of need really good star players to win in today's game.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of role players stepping up. I mean, with Lively and Gafford, you have really good center play now where you can really have a competent center on the floor at all times for the most part. And one last thing on the Mavs, we look at these other series. One last little clip. The Mavs kept Clippers stars relatively quiet. Harden did score 21 last night, but Kawhi and Paul George had very little impact on that game. A nod to their defensive play. Other series around the NBA, Indiana is up 2-1 over Milwaukee. The T-Wolves won last night to give them a 3-0 lead over the Suns. And then games tonight, Cleveland looks to take a 3-1 lead over the Magic in Orlando. New Orleans, like we mentioned, against OKC, they're trying to get back in the series. OKC leads 2-0 in that series. Boston and Miami are tied 1-1. Game 3's tonight. And the Nuggets try to finish off LeBron and the Lakers in the late game, trying to sweep them. And you also have Knicks and Sixers playing game 4 tomorrow afternoon. New York leads that series 2-1. Got to that part of the show. Landen, who's been relatively quiet, he's got the floor. He's going to give us his baseball segment, get us updated. I'd like to think I'm a little more than just a casual fan. I'm a casual hockey fan. Not quite as knowledgeable in MLB as other sports, but that's what I got Landen for. What do you have Landen for us?
As of a day ago, the MLB said that they're going to bring back Players Weekend.
Okay.
Which I know it's probably going to bring a bunch of people in. I know that it's always a big time because the players can put nicknames on the jerseys. They get a little more freedom with stuff that they can do.
Are they going to play that game at the Field of Dreams again too?
I haven't heard anything about it. I'm assuming they probably will. They have for the past 2 seasons.
That's always a fun time of year.
Yeah, they always do that. It's like I remember it was White Sox, Yankees, and wasn't it like Cubs or Reds last year or something?
Yeah, they always do older teams.
Franchises, yeah. And on that, it's a cool deal, but They're not
Yeah.
playing at the field. They built a stadium next to the Field of Dreams. I thought they built a stadium on the Field of Dreams, but it's kind of like next to it. Like, you're kind of overhyping it a little bit. It's cool, but it's not really the Field of Dreams.
The Rangers signed Johnny Cueto,
Okay.
which
That's
is
to a minor league contract.
I don't think so. I think it was to a major league contract, which is much needed for arms.
Yeah, because Bradford's on the IL now.
Yeah, he had back tightness.
We keep looking at, okay, Scherzer's going to come back. Hopefully DeGrom comes back soon, but they keep getting guys. So you're going to have to call Leiter back up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Luckily, they have 6 or 7 starting caliber pitchers in their on their roster, so it's not like killing them, but very concerning.
Yeah. Right now, Adolis Garcia is sitting 11 in home run. For the home run leaders, he's tied with probably 6 or 7 people with 7 home runs. Gunnar Henderson has 8, which is a huge surprise for most people. And Mike Trout has 10, but is 61st in RBIs.
I saw that nobody else is getting on base.
Most
of his home runs have been
24 with runners in scoring position this season.
Oh my gosh. That's Angels. I mean, you have my gosh, that's just a big, I would say big downfall. It's not like they were competing or even in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you have 2 of, I mean, I know Trout has been disappointing, but you had Ohtani and Trout, 2 of the generational players that we were looking at to, at least your generation was going to look at. Both have been compared to Babe Ruth, and Ohtani's been paying out more than Trout. But how do you have those 2 players as the Angels and do nothing with it?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. I know they tried kind of, but man, come on.
There was a lot of home runs yesterday. I think the Dodgers had 4. They won 12-3 over Toronto. Ohtani hit a home run in the first inning of the game.
Where's he at on the home run race? It seems like every time.
8.
I mean, 8. Okay, I thought he'd be a lot higher, but I know they post Ohtani hit another home run every time, and they don't obviously aren't doing that for every player.
He's tied for 7th. Right now, it's Trout has 10, Marcell Ozuna has 9, Gunnar Henderson and Tyler O'Neill have 8, and then from 5 to 13, it's 7, and then from 14 to 30, everybody's tied for 6th. So it hasn't been nobody's really stood out. It's all been, I mean, in one game, some of these guys that have 7 can bump up and get in there with the top guys. The Rangers won last night 2-1. Marcus Semien hit a home run. Evan Carter hit a home run or a double. I think it was a home run. And then I know Nathan Eovaldi pitched. I'm not sure what his stat line was.
I mean, could have been pretty bad. They just gave up 1 run, right?
Yeah. But it seemed to be a good game against the Reds, who have been a decent team.
Eovaldi 6 innings, 1 earned run, just give up 3 hits and struck out 8. So really, really good.
It's a really good
performance.
game.
Yeah.
The Rangers I'm not sure where they're at on the standings. But
it's a bad AL West, but they're back above 500 now.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. They're back above. Yeah, 14-3. Second in the AL West.
Second in the AL West. Yeah, I know Dan on another show brought up that Bochy has never been under 500 as the manager of the Rangers, which is, I mean, just over a season. But that he's flirting with it. They keep going back and forth. They'll win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. But obviously that's stay for another couple of games at least.
Yeah.
For now.
Only half a game back from the Mariners, but the Mariners have played one less game. The Athletics are in third.
Well,
11-16.
You're talking about the downfall of the Angels or just how bad they're doing. Not a big surprise. And obviously the Astros are still in last, right?
19.
See, it's just getting worse. I remember reading the other day, I think it's when they were 7-17. That was the first time they've been 10 games under 500 since 2016. The Astros.
Yeah.
Not doing much. I know they're dealing with injury issues, but
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the fans making posts saying, "Can we get Dusty Baker back?"
I mean, they don't have the
need to get the trash cans back.
AL.
Yeah.
The White Sox are 4-22 in the AL Central. So it could always get worse. That's the worst record in the major leagues right now. Above both sides.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, they got rid of Tim Anderson, which you thought would help.
Mm-hmm.
He led the league in strikeouts and didn't have a home run all season. After having a really good season the season before, but now they're 4-22 and seemingly are the worst team in the league.
And take a look at the Orioles. We're talking about who were you talking about? Jackson Holiday?
Yeah.
That he was I don't know that he was hyped up as one of the best I mean, he was definitely one of the best prospects when he moved up seems like very soon. And now he's being optioned back to AAA after just having, a terrible, how long has he even been up? Like a couple of weeks?
Yeah, 3 or maybe 3 weeks. He only had one hit. It came in a second game. I want to say he's like 1 for 20 something.
Yeah, Tony said about 1 for 30, something around there.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad, and they moving him down there, not putting him on the major league roster, they were concerned about, what was it, hitting against lefties, and
yeah, I mean,
they put him down
5.9 batting average.
He lit up AAA. So they're like, hey, you know what? Let's bring him up, and then you bring him up, and it doesn't pan out, and I think it was worse to bring him up, and this happened. Now I have to move him back down. Hopefully, it's not like a confidence.
Yeah, definitely a mental deal now.
Back pretty quick.
Yeah,
I mean, the Orioles are in a position where they're competing now. It's not like just leave him in the starting lineup, let him hit out of this. If you were like a rebuilding team, but yeah, hopefully he can just go back to normal, going back down to AAA. But there's definitely that mark on him now. I mean, not necessarily from our point of view, but from his point of view, where confidence, where is he at mentally? Even if he goes back and starts doing great in AAA, there's still, until he comes to the majors and succeeds, there's still going to be that deal on him. When he comes back, there's going to be maybe if he does really good, he comes back, there's some more excitement around it, but it's like more of, okay, what's going to happen now? Now you're kind of worried when he comes back. Is he going to be able to replicate it? Hopefully it's not a situation where he's just done mentally. I know baseball can be like that. I mean, he shouldn't just like I know you get the yips or whatever you want to call them, you go in slumps, but you don't just forget how to play baseball. So I expect him to go down, maybe struggle at first, come back to normal, and then kind of reset and try to do it again.
Yeah, what I found was he's 34 or 2 for 34 with 5 runs scored.
It's not going to get it done. How old is he? He's like 19, right?
20.
I mean, he's still what is the average player come up? Not average, but you're looking at a good player ready to go, probably like 23 and 24, something like that. Like Josh Young's 24, 25. He's not all that young. So
I mean, Wyatt Langford's 22.
yeah. Let's see, because you don't even, I don't know. I'm assuming Holiday just came straight from high school, coming up at 20.
Yeah.
So you still have plenty of time. There's no, they brought him up because he was doing so great. Obviously there's a need there for the Orioles, but they're doing fine.
I know it's important for some of these teams, these franchises, to draft guys out of high school. We've seen it with some other players, and they want to get them locked up, get them into their organization, and start working with them. But there's so much to be said about going to college. Especially some of these guys that are they're top guys. They're going to go play at the best baseball schools in college. The Vandy's, the A&M's, the Texas, they're going to go play at the top-notch schools. So I think there's something to say, like Wyatt Langford, playing at LSU. And these guys go and they're really going to put in the work. They're going to play some top talent. I think there's some development that can be had there and help build that confidence to go into play pro ball,
Yeah. No, for sure. He's just you don't want to get, as a fan, you don't want to get not upset, but you just don't want to get disappointed in it because he's young. Like, you don't see them coming, like just like the same with Wyatt Langford, you don't see them coming up that soon. Evan Carter, I thought we were a year out from Evan Carter, but injury, and he's able to jump in there and be successful. And the Rangers have been, the Rangers have been, I say, really lucky so far with these players, where I know Evan Carter struggled so far this year, but Josh Young looked great coming in. Obviously, Evan Carter had a great run last year in the postseason. Wyatt Langford's looked pretty good, where these are players that Holiday is being compared, maybe not so much Josh Young, but definitely Carter and Wyatt Langford being, kind of the same. They're all competing for Rookie of the Year, situations like that, where not only in a vacuum, it's bad that he had the start he did, reset, go back, whatever, but he's being compared to these players now. He's like, well, look at and other players around the league too. That's just from a Rangers standpoint.
I wonder what changes for the Holiday family with Jackson has a younger brother coming up through high school now. He's your class, Landen, is that correct?
Yeah.
Who's being touted as possibly even better than Jackson. He's the number one player in the 2025 class right now.
Not number one, I don't think, but I think he's top 5.
So, does his decision get changed a little by seeing what his brother's going through? And if he is a potential draft pick, does he say, hey, you know what, I'm actually going to go to college. I'm going to spend this time to develop and just make sure my skills are honed in? Because it's really hard to tell when you come out of high school with these guys. Who's the other guy? Clark.
Oh, yeah, Max Clark.
Max Clark, who was the Tigers' high school draft pick this year. These guys are coming out of playing, yes, they may be playing some talented schools, but the high school game is so much different. It's not the same animal. You're not seeing the same talent. I hopefully the younger Holiday makes that decision and hopefully goes to college and continues to develop and hone in his skills there. And we'd love to see that success from him at the college level before moving on to the pros.
Maybe the Astros are tanking and going to get Holiday in the draft coming up. Well, I guess he's got a couple of years, doesn't he? He wouldn't be drafted
another year
this year. He's got another year. All right. Awesome. Real quick, let's move on to this final one, only because I've already done a lot of the editing and title stuff. So let's get this in here. We have not done a segment of the thread in a while, so let's pull this up. But the Houston Texans are now going to sport these beauties. Really, the Texans' first uniform redesign since coming into the league. I know they've had alternates where they're wearing red. We've seen red helmets.
Yeah,
but this is really the first overhaul in their franchise. what are we thinking here? What do we like, dislike about some of these threads here?
I don't hate it.
I know these are going to be their official uniforms. These aren't like, I mean, there's a lot of uniforms, so it's not like, I know baseball and, you know, the City Connect or whatever, but these are like, obviously, I think with the red helmet, that looks like an alternate, but with the H, that looks like that's their normal helmet. And then they have a couple different versions of the dark blue, maybe
I
black
would say
jerseys.
that the dark blue and white, you know, their traditional colors, I would say that's probably their standard home and away uniforms.
Those two in the back right.
Yeah, and then they'll mix these other two in throughout. But
I
you
like
know,
the
designs, the redesigns of teams. You know, recently we've had Falcons and Cardinals, and you know, I've been very underwhelmed with them. I'm actually I
this
like
one
these.
is
I think
they have
did-
that newspaper script font with the H. I assume that's their normal helmet. You can't see it on the other two, I'm guessing.
for
that
other
reason,
two
it's gonna be
helmets
the
are their
same.
normal. They're normal.
Oh, okay. So this is
so like
this-
an alternate option.
this red jersey and this H are different helmets.
Yeah. So you have three
Okay.
helmets, three helmet
Okay.
options here for them.
That's good. I like the implementation of I don't know what the actual color's called, but I'm going to call it the Houston Oiler blue,
Yeah.
where they bring back that sky blue. It doesn't look like much on the other jerseys. You know, their normal uniforms look pretty standard, like nothing too crazy. We're just going to rebrand a little bit, maybe make the blue a little darker. But I definitely like these other two. Just having completely different uniforms. You know, I like alternate color uniforms when you leave everything the same and you just kind of swap colors. But I also like just completely different design, different uniforms, different helmets. I like that as well. Any other thoughts on these uniforms before we close out the show?
One detail I see that I do like is every jersey is essentially different. So even you can see in the back the dark blue and the white. We'll see the white has the stripes like horns on the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
The blue one, they didn't just take the same style and just invert
Yeah.
the colors.
They have its own.
I think if I've
style.
seen it, it has the same Texans bull logo on the sleeves of that one as well.
Yeah.
So I like how they're using these in different ways. You know, they're not just taking one style and just invert colors and here's a uniform set.
Yeah.
A lot more
Yeah,
thought
exactly.
being put into it.
That's kind of my beef with the Titans uniforms. It's relatively the same as they've always been.
Yeah,
They're just implementing dark blue more than anything.
I definitely think these are probably, especially this alternate the H. I don't know what they're calling this uniform, but this Houston uniform in the front
Mhm.
number. I think that's probably going to be one of the hottest selling jerseys this year.
For sure. And then the red one just looks like a blank red helmet. Interesting
Yeah,
what their thoughts are, because there's always a reason they do some of this stuff. It's
Well, you
not
see
usually just random.
It actually has like bull horns on the helmet.
Okay, maybe it's just
in
I have my
blue
screen
there.
pretty small here right now.
Yeah, it's got those horns on the helmet. I think they're calling this their Battle Red. Is the name of this one?
I like it. I like it as someone who's not a fan of really any Houston sports. I enjoying this look, and hopefully they don't have much more success than the Cowboys do this year, so I can enjoy these uniforms a little more and watch their game. But guys, great show. It was fun. I'm glad we got the thread back into here. Got a little baseball. Pretty much touched on all of them except hockey, which I don't think any of us are any experts are. Hopefully the Stars, they have game 3 tonight. Hopefully they get
Good
back
thing
in the
is we have a
series.
team of guys that are handling hockey and doing a great
For
job. with
sure.
it.
Check out Shut the Puck Up podcast, hockey podcast. Yeah, make sure you get that hard P in there. Shut the Puck Up podcast with Kenny, aka Reckless, and Adam. I know they're trying to do something today for the Stars game, trying to do something Monday as well. So go check those guys out. But guys, until next time, Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Follow however you're listening on your preferred podcast app. With Tony and Landen, I'm Ashton. See you guys later.